So thank you again all for jumping on. I really appreciate it. Before I even start, I'm working on our October calendar this week. We're going to have it ready to go and sent out by Friday. And so you're going to see with that, I'm going to start dropping in kind of multiple classes a week. I'm going to conduct them pretty similar to what we've done so far. You know, the process of entering your contact through accessing the paperwork and sending the paperwork off to your client. I will call out on the calendar certain classes that will cover specific topics. So as I had mentioned, I know I want to spend some time on how to download your existing loops out of .loop if you want to save them to your computer. Another topic that I want to cover specifically is how to submit your paperwork to the MCA office. So keep an eye out for those specific classes. I will call attention to the names on the calendar. But in addition to that, a lot of the other classes that, sorry, just a couple more people jumping on. A lot of the classes, again, are going to be set up kind of like what we're doing now, walking through, pretty much start to finish of how to access everything, how to do everything from start to finish. So having said that, again, I always want to preface, if anybody has any questions, Adrienne, quick early questions. DocuSign have 24-hour support like .loop. So we are going to have an agreement with DocuSign that will provide that support. I'm still kind of in the process of seeing if we have a specific contact or anything like that. But I will update you as soon as I learn a bit more about that. So I will keep you posted on that. Sorry, a couple more. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Okay. So yes, for today, what I wanted to cover is, again, recapping what we did last week. I'll spend about 5 or 10 minutes on that. And then today I'm going to actually take you into DocuSign so you can start to see what that's going to be like. Like I said, feel free to unmute yourselves if you have any questions along the way. Drop them in the chat, kind of navigating a couple screens here, so I'll do my best to answer. And then I'll open it up again at the end for any questions. Of course, as always, I know a few of you have already reached out. If you need any assistance setting up and signing into your DocuSign account, or if you want to change your email or anything like that, send me a separate email and I'll work with you separately and we'll get that taken care of and set up. Okay. All right, so to briefly recap, and by briefly I mean within 5 minutes, to recap what we covered last week. I did show how to connect your DocuSign account. Go ahead and minimize this. How to access your DocuSign account from within Command. And I didn't say this on the call last week, but I really want to set the stage here this week. The best way to think of Command and DocuSign and how they work together, essentially Command is going to be used for the compliance side of things. So that means you're going to go to Command to submit your paperwork to the MCA office, to go through that compliance process. I will cover that in a class to come. But the idea behind setting everything up in Command first is that it will save you the trouble of having to enter that information later. With that, you can then think of DocuSign, when we get to that today, as more of the client side of things. So DocuSign is obviously where you're going to access the paperwork, where you're going to fill out the actual contract, where you're going to generate all of that information and send it off to your client. So therefore, when the time comes that something goes under contract, something closes, you're submitting that paperwork to the MCA office, that's when you'll kind of really go back into Command to submit that completed paperwork and send it off so you can get paid. So I really want people to kind of think of it that way. That's kind of why I structured these first 2 classes in that kind of way, is because, again, Command is kind of the compliance, the MCA side of things. DocuSign is kind of the client paperwork side, sending the paperwork side of things. So good way to kind of look at it. Because as a good example, I know this is a question that I don't know if it's come up as much yet, but I'm sure it will. Obviously, last week I showed you how to start the transaction and start this in Command. Once you've created that contact, and if you already have that paperwork, if you've already sent some paperwork and you just need to go in and send them something else, you will be able to go straight into DocuSign. You will not have to go directly into Command every single time. You're basically going into Command to start that transaction, kind of work on it in DocuSign, and then resubmit all of your final information at the end back in Command. So that's kind of how the two of them work together. I really just wanted to kind of drive that point home this week. Okay, so just to recap what we did last week, again, I will just point this out. The very first step, for those of you who haven't done it already, you will want to log into your Command, and in the upper right-hand corner is your name, and there is an option that says Settings. And so when you click on Settings, that's going to take you to a page that shows all of your integrations. And you will see if you are connected to DocuSign, that will actually be one of the first ones that appears. In this case, if you're connected and everything is good, it should say connected. If not, shoot me an email and I'll work with you separately to address that. I won't spend too much time on that today. Most important first step right there. Okay. So going back to the home page, I will kind of start from where we left off. Recap what we did last week. So last week, what we did is we went into our contacts and we entered a brand new contact. And so in that case, if that was the person, whether they're a buyer or a seller, you will have to go and click Add Contact and add that contact in. Pretty simple. All you need is their name and their email to get started. You can always add more information later. For the purposes of today, to save some time, I am going to go ahead and use my girlfriend as the example for what we're going to cover today. So I went ahead and entered her contact information. In this case, I listed my email and my phone number just for the purposes of today. So I added that contact. And once you create that contact, you can click into it. It'll show you their contact card here with their information. And what you're going to do is on the right-hand side, there are a couple tabs. What we did is we clicked on opportunities and we clicked on create opportunity. And so that's just what I'm going to do here. Again, we're going to walk through what we covered in more detail last week. So I'm going to go ahead and fill out this information. Again, anything with a red asterisk is what is required. So obviously our market center will show our office. If you're part of a team, I will speak to you separately. There's a slightly little difference here, but I'm going to move past that for today. Opportunity type. So you'll be able to select what the opportunity type is. So for today's example, we're just going to go ahead and do a regular listing. The owner is obviously going to be you, or whoever that agent is that is owning that transaction. Client, obviously that information will populate here. If there is a co-buyer or co-seller or anything like that, you will also be able to add their information here as well. They will have to be added as a separate contact before you get to that part. Below that, we have opportunity name. You can obviously change this later for the purposes of today to make it easier for us to identify. I'm going to go ahead and, if we actually know the listing, which I'm going to use an example listing today of 32 Sequoia. You can kind of coordinate and give that opportunity name whatever works better for you, however you like to organize it. We recommend that if it is for a listing, you do include the listing address, or if it's with a buyer, you include the buyer's name. So because we're going to do a listing example today, I'm just going to go ahead and put 32 Sequoia, the address of the property. And again, I'm not going to really worry about anything that doesn't need to be filled in at this point. Just going to go for the ones with the little red asterisk. So with that, you're going to have to put in a commission rate. So with that, you can put in 2.5. Again, all of this can be changed later. Opportunity phase. Let's say we secured the listing. We'll just go ahead and select that as active. And opportunity stage, we'll say negotiations. That doesn't change too much, whatever you select there. So don't worry too much if you're not 100% sure. You can just select something to kind of get the ball rolling. Okay. And I'm going to click create. So that's going to go ahead and create that opportunity. And we're going to now click over into that opportunity. Again, if any of you didn't see last week's class, or if you weren't on last week or anything like that, I went through this a bit slower in a bit more detail last week. So just catch that recording in the meantime. I'm just getting us to this point to today so we can go on to the next step. So when you do this, it's going to take you into your opportunity. Again, it's our listing opportunity. It's fed in some of that information that we plugged in, the address, the contact name. One little trick, if it is for a listing, or if you happen to know the property that the buyer is purchasing, you can actually select that listing. And by doing so, that will feed in some of this information into the contract and into the paperwork that we're going to fill out here shortly. So that's why, for the purposes of today, I really wanted to select a listing. We want to make sure we have that information available. So I'm just going to click this button at the top that says select from listings. And I'm going to go ahead and search for 32 Sequoia. Oops, got that one wrong. Okay, and it does happen to be this one right here, 32 Sequoia Drive. I'm going to select that. I'm going to be very honest with everybody. I'm using this example because it's actually my girlfriend's sister and their brother-in-law are selling their house. So I at least know a little more about this property. I can use it as a better example. So did just want to kind of call that out. It's a family affair for today's class. So all I did was selected that property. And again, by doing so, it's going to feed in some of that information when we actually move over into DocuSign. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, out of all of these tabs here at the top, not worried about too much today. We're just going to click on documents. That's where we're going to be doing the bulk of our discussion today. Let's see, Adrienne with a quick question, but that info would not be in there yet if you were putting the listing info in. Yes, that is correct. That is correct. If it is a brand new listing that you are submitting, that wouldn't be in there yet. Typically, once it's entered into the MLS, it will take about 24 hours to make its way into the KWLS and into command. So yes, that is true. If you do, however, for example, if any of that information changes, you can still select the listing after the fact. That way, if any information has changed from the time that you first submit it to the point that it is active, it will automatically feed and update any of that information once you select it here in command. Okay. So we clicked into documents, and this is probably the point where I left off last week. So again, I just wanted to get us to this point, and then now everything today that we're going to kind of review today should be new for most people. This documents section is where most of you will be ultimately doing most of your work. When we teach in an additional class, probably next week's class, I'm going to talk about this section in particular. This is where you will actually upload those documents and those files that need to be submitted to the MCA office. And so this is where that compliance and that compliance portion really comes into play. So for the purposes of today, I'm not going to walk through too much of this just yet. We will cover that next week. So as we've done, I've selected my contact at this point, the seller. I've selected the property that is that is tied to the seller. So now we obviously want to access our paperwork. So what you'll do is when you click into that opportunity, we clicked into the Documents tab, and then right here on the right-hand side is going to be a button that says Start a Transaction, and that's where we're going to kick things off for today. Any questions with anything that I covered, prior to this point so far? Okay, I'm going to take silence as a good thing. Okay, so when you click start a transaction, DocuSign will have you sign into your account once a day. That is for security purposes. So when you first click on this is the first time I've been in here this morning. It is going to have me sign in. And again, that is just a security feature. I know there have been some people that have reached out to me. They've had to log in from different devices, which is probably going to be true for most of us. Whether you're logging in from your laptop, you can log in on your phone, your iPad, whatever the case may be. When you log in for the first time on a new device, DocuSign will send you a code to your email address listed with your account. It will have you type in a 6-digit number, again, just to confirm that you are accessing it from whatever device you're accessing it from. So in that case, that's only going to be a one-time thing if you're signing in from somewhere new. But especially as we get started, as you start signing in from these different devices, just kind of make a note of that. You will have to access that code and just type it in. Once you do it, you won't have to do it moving forward. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and sign in with my email address. And then once you do that, it will have you then enter your password as well. I'm going to go ahead and click login. Okay, welcome to DocuSign, everybody. So as you sign in, chances are, if this is your first time logging in to DocuSign, you may get a couple pop-ups if it is your very first time. Really nothing you're going to need to take action on at the moment. What I will mention now, before we kind of get into this, important to note the way that DocuSign will work. There will come a point, whether it's when you first log in on this page where we're at now, or if when you go to access the documents, DocuSign will require you to enter your NERDS ID number. There is a link that shows you how to access that number if you're not 100% sure on where or how to access it. What that does is that will give you access, which you will see here shortly, to all of the different MLS folders and files. The reason for that is because within DocuSign, those forms are connected to the different MLSs. So when there is an update, the most updated form is provided in that folder. So that way you're always going to be working with the most up-to-date version, the most up-to-date file, and the most up-to-date information. When I get to the end of the call, I will kind of show you one additional way you can enter that number, again, because it can pop up in different places. So I will cover that toward the end of the call. When you first log in, it will take you to a screen that looks a little something like this. And I know there are a lot of different tabs. There's a lot of different little areas. I'm going to be very specific with today's class because, again, I just want to get you to the point of accessing your paperwork, filling it out, and sending it off. So in classes to come, I will explain some of these different sections: dashboard, inbox, my docs. No need to worry about those yet. What I want you guys to focus on is the rooms tab. You can think of rooms essentially as the loops in dot loop. So in dot loop, you would go and create a loop. The terminology with DocuSign is you're creating a room. Again, these are the little things. You just have to kind of, think of it that way. That's really all this is. So for the purposes of today, we're just going to remain in rooms. And then once you are in the room section, we will kind of mention a couple of these tabs right here. If you are creating this from within Command first, if you are selecting a listing and adding in that information, some of this should already populate right here. So obviously we have the name of the room, 32 Sequoia listing. We have the address, we have an ID number, and the creation date. As you start having different transactions for different properties and creating different rooms, they will populate right here. So obviously I wanted to start from scratch. So I had some in here that I was kind of playing around with. I made sure to clean those out. That way you guys can kind of see what it's going to look like for you when you do your first one. So all of those different rooms will appear here. and that exists within this Documents tab. Okay, so today we're going to spend most of our time in this Documents tab. I'm not going to cover really either people, messages, or history just yet. There's really no need to just yet. I want to start with the basics first. Okay. So what I do want to show first, I'm going to walk through details. I'm then going to go to documents, and then I will go to envelopes. So to kick things off, I'm going to click into details so you can take a look and see what this looks like. And so with that, kind of like what you guys are used to with .loop, when you currently go in to add in, contact information, add individuals, add in that property information, that's really what this details portion is. So very similar to what you were doing already, you'll see that there are a lot of different sections in here. There's property details, there is, information to include the contract date, all of that stuff. If you're working on a property that you have this information ready and ready to go, you'll see here at the top, there's just an edit button. And basically by doing that, you'll see you can then just populate any of this information. For the most part, if anything is highlighted with the red asterisk, you'll see that states that it's required to close. Doesn't look like there's really too much in here just yet. But again, highly recommended. If you have this information, fill it out. Much like .loop, what you fill out here will feed into your paperwork. I'm not going to add anything really right now. I'm going to keep it as it is. But just know you can kind of go ahead and include that information in here as well. And when doing that, you'll see at the bottom, there's the option to save. Just make sure you save your information. Okay. Any initial questions or concerns with the details tab? Again, it's going to work just the same as that section did in .loop. Okay. All right. So now what I want to do is I'm going to click back over into the documents section. And we're going to kind of go through an example here. Again, as I had mentioned last week, and I had mentioned at our sales rally, Sally and I are still in the process of uploading those final forms. So what you're going to see in here at the moment is going to be some placeholders. I will go ahead and let you know when those forms are fully ready for use. So again, you're going to see some changes in here over the next couple of days or probably the next week or two. So just kind of be aware of that. But what we walk through today is going to be the process moving forward. Okay. So we created our room. We're in our room. Now we want to be able to access our documents. So when you are in this Documents tab, in the upper right-hand corner is a button that says Add. And so when you click on that, it's going to give you a couple different options. So if you happen to have files on your computer, if you have something saved to your computer that you want to upload, maybe you have something in Dropbox or your Google Drive, DocuSign will work with those and you'll be able to upload those directly into here. For the majority of users, for the majority of us, we are going to be using DocuSign forms as the main way to access your paperwork. Okay. So what we're going to do here today, we're going to click on DocuSign forms. And by doing that, it's going to take you to a page that looks a little like this. Okay, so I'm going to spend just a few minutes here kind of explaining what this is and how we're going to use it, how it's going to work. Okay, so forms, it's always going to show, in this case, I'm working with the MCA office, so I do have a couple additional little features, but it will always show forms for you as the agent. So it should always have your name listed up here at the top. After that, you're going to see two different sections. You're going to see groups and you're going to see libraries. I will mention first, as I had said a few minutes ago, this libraries portion down here, you're going to see a couple different MLSs. So we have Bright, Central Jersey, Garden State, obviously, Hudson County, Monmouth Ocean, and NJMLS. So those forms will be updated automatically once you log into your account and provide them with your NERDS ID number. that will give you access to make sure that those forms are the most up-to-date and most recent. So I know the majority of us, I can't say us, the majority of you typically use Garden State MLS. So when you click on that library, you're going to see these are all of the forms provided by Garden State MLS. You know, again, same thing for some of these different ones as well. Mute a few people. Not letting me mute. No, Jolene, I don't know if you can hear me, but if you wouldn't mind just muting, just get a little bit of kickback. Okay, so in that case, sorry everyone. Okay, so in that case, for the most part, you're not really going to use libraries too much. What you are going to use is groups. Sorry, I'm just I'm getting kickback on my end here. Sure. Yeah, I'm trying to mute. It's not letting me mute for whatever reason. Sorry, Jolene. I think I see you're in here twice. So what I might do. Sorry, everyone. Yeah. Jolene, I'm going to go ahead and. Sorry about that. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Okay. As I was saying, there are the two sections. There are libraries. Obviously, that is where those forms exist. You will also see there is one other library here as well, and it says KW825NJ. This section here is our forms that are specific to our office. So again, best way to kind of go ahead and think of that is what you're used to now with dotloop, that version now library, kind of that one spot where every single form exists. That is what this KW825 library is going to be. As I've been mentioning, you'll see that there's probably about 50 forms in here already. What I want to preface, however, and the reason I keep mentioning that Sally and I are working on making some updates, is the fact that these forms were uploaded back in January of 2020. So while the majority of them are still going to be accurate and updated and things like that, Sally and I are in the process of making some tweaks to certain forms. We may also rename some of them. Again, so that's going to kind of be an ongoing process here for a little bit. So, we just ask for your patience with that, but we're going to make sure that the forms that you need are going to be in here in the meantime anyway. And it shouldn't impact any of your transactions moving forward. Adrienne, yes, can you reorganize them? Yes, you will see there is going to be a way for you to organize and list everything out the way that you prefer, okay? To kind of go off of that, the place that most of you are going to spend most of your time and the way that you are going to access the forms you need is going to be in this groups section. And what you're going to see here is I went ahead and created those same exact, in this case in dotloop, they were templates. So when you would start a new loop, you would select a template. And we had, I think there's 11 here, if I'm correct, 11 or 12 different templates. So again, it's just kind of based different terminology for it. Instead of a template, you're going to click a group. So, for today's purpose, I'm going to click on the GSMLS listing documents. And exactly like what you did in dotloop, unfortunately, you're going to see here, I just have one in here at the moment as a placeholder as I add in the rest of those forms. But what you're going to do is you're going to click on whatever template, or in this case, group you need. So for most people, it's probably going to be, GSMLS listing docs, or in this case, if you're working with a buyer documents. And when you click on that, it's going to have all of the forms that you need already. So, again, listing agreement, forms specific to our office, It'll even include those, additional forms if you need them. We're going to really kind of have everything live in these different groups. If there's anything that I want to drive home today, it's just know that when you get to this point in DocuSign, when we're fully up and running with it, you're going to go into documents, you're going to add documents, and you're going to select them from one of these groups. Okay. So with that, again, we're going to use this listing agreement as an example today. I'm going to walk through how you would fill this out. When the time comes, all of your forms will be in here and you'll be able to check them all off just like that. And you'll click Add Selected. So let's pretend this is full of forms. I'm going to check them all off. Or again, if there's certain forms you don't need, you can obviously uncheck them, check off the ones you do need, whatever the case may be. So for today, I'm going to check them all and I'm going to click Add Selected. Okay. So by doing that, it's going to add all of those forms in your room. So because I only had the one form in there that I moved over, there's only one form appearing in here at the moment. Let's see. Okay, Sushmita, trying to add a CIS. So Sushmita, we're not quite there yet. I'm not encouraging anybody to really use this just yet. Toward the end of the week, we should have most of those forms, including the CIS and some of those, added into those group folders. So that's kind of the bulk of my work this week, is to kind of move those over. So in the meantime, I would still stick with dot loop just for the time being. But great question. If you need a CIS or anything like that, you'll kind of be following the same process that we're doing now. And you can manually add forms as well. I will cover that in a future class. Again, I just want to get everybody on the same page using what we'll have in here already. Okay. So let's go ahead and do this as an example. Let's say I want to send Sky, we want to fill out this listing agreement. We want to send it off to the client for them to sign. So what we're going to do is I'm going to click on that document. And by doing that, it will pull up a preview of what that document will look like. So again, this is a great example why I say it's so important that you either enter that information when you first started off in Command, or you enter it when you first log into that detail section when you first get into DocuSign. So some of this information is already filled out. So, of course, we'll have, our office address, some of that initial information, name of the agent, name of the seller, things like that. Now, when you see this, you will see that there are no signatures or signature boxes on here just yet. No need to worry about that. We're about to cover that in the next step. But if there is any other information that you want or need to add, you'll see that you can just type it in this portion. You can check things off. There will be pre-filled spots where you can include that information. When I get to the next step, there is a way to be able to add additional text boxes, signatures, boxes, whatever you need. I will show that here in the next step. But let's say you want to fill this out and send this off to your client for their signature. Take a look at it, fill in any additional information that's not here already. And really all you're going to do is hit save and close. Okay. So now what we're going to do is when you hover over a document with your mouse, you'll see in the upper left-hand corner is a little button that's a little circle. If you check that off, that will open up a new row of options that you can take for that document, or there is the option to select all of the documents. Okay. So for the purposes of this, we'll select this one document. Again, if we were doing this for multiple documents, it would be the exact same thing. The most important thing for you to know as a new user of DocuSign, when you get to this point and you check off the document and these options appear at the top, you'll see it's going to give you the option. You can make a copy if you need to email the form off to someone. I should be very specific about this. When you email the form off, it will not put in the signatures. So just know that you're not going to want to email it to them. Instead, you're going to want to do what we're going to do next here, which is create an envelope. I will circle back to that in a second. I just want to show what the rest of these are. You can also archive a document, unarchive a document, and delete a document as well. Okay, so out of all of these tabs, if you need to send it off to someone for a signature or to fill out, you are going to select the third one right here that says create an envelope. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on create an envelope. And that's going to take us to this page. Okay, think of it this way. The best way to explain it, to simplify it, you're going to do most of your heavy lifting and most of your work is going to take place in the documents section in Rooms. That's where you're going to fill out most of the information. You need to get all the paperwork ready and together. You're not going to you're not going to fill in the areas for their signatures until you put it in an envelope. And essentially what that is, and the way to think about that is all of those documents will go into an envelope. Obviously, you seal an envelope when you send it. So the idea is you're sending off a sealed document to your client who will be able to electronically sign it, and it will provide that kind of protection so their documents aren't just floating out there. It will kind of keep their information and keep that privacy. So think of it that way. You're putting all of your documents in the envelope, you're sealing it, and you're sending it off only to them for their signature and for their eyes only. Okay. So I'm going to go down this page here. We're going to start here at the top, envelope name. So this is the name that basically your clients are going to see. So you can always keep it what it reverts to, which just is please DocuSign. Or again, if you're working maybe with a client who gets a ton of emails, or you want to be able to better keep track of what that will look like, you can obviously include, a little more detail. So please DocuSign. How about paperwork for 32 Sequoia. You can provide whatever name you want, whatever name you prefer. It's completely up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and update that. Scrolling down, there is a section that says add documents to the envelope. So in this case, you'll see that we do have obviously our one document that we're working with right here. If you wanted to add additional documents to the envelope, there is a box right here that has kind of three options: room docs, use a template, and more, which would allow you to, again, another way to be able to upload forms if they're saved on your computer or elsewhere. But in this case, most people, for the most part, will use room docs. And essentially all that will do is open up a window that will allow you to select other documents that you have in your room. So, again, for today, I only have the one document in there at the moment. If you needed to select other documents to include in the envelope to send to them for signature, they would all appear here, and you can check them off and add them to the envelope as well. So just one other way, in case you get to this point, you forget to add a form, it will allow you to add another form to the envelope. There is also an option to use a template. I'm not going to cover that today. That's DocuSign 2.0. When we get to that point, I think this was a question early on, you will be able to set up some forms with your information already populated and already in there and ready to use and ready to go. So that's going to save people a lot of time. That's kind of like the autofill feature that's already in .loop. That's essentially what you'll do with a template. So you'll be able to save a version of that file, and you'll be able to use that for all of your transactions moving forward. I'm going to cover that in a future class. Again, I just want to get everybody on the same page, so we're kind of just starting here. So again, if you need to add a document, you can click Room Docs. That's the most important thing to know for today. Scrolling down from there, it gives you the option to add recipients to the envelope. And this is going to be an important part. You're going to want to make sure that you add those recipients. So you'll see by clicking Add Recipients, it gives you a couple options. There is the option for pre-tagged roles, room participants, or email address. Most, if not all of you, are always going to select pre-tagged roles. Room participants would come into play more so if you give someone else access to your room. So in that case, that's always going to typically be something like the MCA office, compliance. Maybe you are part of a team, you want to have other members of the team to have access. You'll be able to send that off to those participants by clicking on this option. And email address, that's kind of if you're sending it off to, great example, if you're working with younger clients and let's say their parents want to also see a copy of the paperwork to take a look at it, just using that as an example. You can click email address and manually input an email address. Those folks would also get that a copy of that paperwork as well. But for today, we're going to click on pre-tagged roles and we're going to walk through that. So when you get to this page, you're going to see that it's going to have a couple different roles that you can select from. So sellers, again, because this is a listing agreement, you're really only going to send this off to sellers at this point. So that's why that's only going to show. If it's with a buyer, it's going to show the role as buyers, etc. It's going to show the document or the documents that you are sending this off to. And then on the right-hand side, it's going to allow you to select a recipient. So for most people, if you're following exactly what we're doing today, if you're doing a listing, you're sending it off to the seller for their signature, you're going to want to click on that seller. So in this case, only one seller. Sky is the one seller. You're going to click on recipient. And you're going to see here, it's going to give you a couple different options. So in this case, if you input their information, again, either in command or in that details section of DocuSign, their information should come up right down here. So of course, it's going to give you a few options. It's going to give me the option, I created the loop. Again, the MCA office, that's why you see Raphael in here at the moment. And of course, in this case, our seller, which is going to be, for today, Sky. So I'm going to go ahead and click Sky. Sky is going to be the one to sign the paperwork. Okay. So I'm going to click that and I'm going to click Add Select. And actually, let me do one more just so you can see kind of two different examples. Let me also add the listing agent. Again, just using it as an example, let's say I am the listing agent. I'm going to go ahead and drop my name in there too, just so you guys can see what that would look like. Okay. And Add Selected. That's now going to show these recipients. Again, it's going to show their name and their email, name and email. I did this on purpose just so you guys can see what it looks like when the person actually gets the form to sign it. So you'll get to see that as well. And then next to that, it gives you a drop down. So again, similar to .loop, gives you the option of either needs to sign, needs to view, maybe they just receive a copy, whatever the case may be, you'll be able to select what it is and what permissions they have. To start, again, most of this is going to always be needs to sign. It's always going to revert to needs to sign. So if you need to change that, you can click on that and change that. Okay. And the more option, again, probably not going to use that too much yet, so I'm not going to worry about that at this point. Just a couple more little options. Adrienne, so the signature boxes are added automatically or no? Perfect timing. I selected my recipients. You then have an option of adding a message. So for example, if you want to add a message, hey, please sign the attached document, get it back to me by 5 p.m. Great, you can type in your little message right here. And then you can either hit save and close or next. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save and close just so you guys can see. If you hit save and close, it'll take you into your envelopes, which is right here. So again, just to show you, just to visualize it, here's our documents. We went ahead and created that envelope. So it's going to show us an envelope right here. And you can toggle how this will look as well. So I saved our envelope as a draft. So that's why I hit save and close. So if you're ready to populate those signatures, all you're going to do is hit next. Give it a couple seconds. It's going to go ahead and pull up those forms. It's going to open up in a new window. That's going to look a little something like this. Okay. No need to be overwhelmed. I know this is a busy page. For the purposes of today, I want to focus on two things. Okay. On the left-hand side, it's going to give you different options of different things you can drop into the document. So whether you need to include a signature box, an initial box, a date, text box, all kinds of stuff. A lot of this you're really not going to use. I think most folks here probably, if anything, are only going to need to add a signature, an initial, a date, or in this case, a text box of some sort. So these just give you the different options that you'll be able to drop into this document. On the right-hand side, it actually shows you the full list of documents that you're sending off to your client, okay? In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see there is a drop-down. This will let you toggle back and forth between what your different clients are going to see. So in this case, it's going to revert to me as the listing agent. It's going to show what I need to see. And you'll see in that case, it shows and automatically populates those signatures that are required for this form, okay? So in this case for today, really the only signatures are going to be required right here at the bottom. What that will do, this is a cool feature. This is, I think is going to come in handy for a lot of people because it's going to help you feel more comfortable using DocuSign. When you get to this point, you can toggle between what you see as the agent and what your client will see. So when you do that, you'll see they're color coded. So if, for example, you need your buyer to add a piece of information to this document, you can click on that buyer, that seller, that buyer, that seller, whoever your client is. So if I click on Sky, and let's say I need her to, I don't know, let's say I need her present address still. Let's say I still don't have her present address added. You can drop in a text box, much like you kind of did with .loop. And you can drag and drop and format that information in. So by doing that, and by doing that under her name, that will only allow her, or in this case, your client, to enter information into that area. Okay, so if I was, for example, if I needed to add a piece of information, I would click over into my name and I can add in a text box, and that will allow me the option to enter that information. And so a lot of it will work very similar to how that part worked in .loop if you needed to add in any of that information. Okay, so I'll keep one of these text boxes so you can see when we get to this last step here. But otherwise, Adriana, to answer your question, any document that you put in here that requires their signature, they should already be set up, and they should automatically include and highlight those areas where that individual will need to sign. Okay, so in that case, the cool feature is if I click over to Sky, before I send it off, it gives me the option to click on recipient preview. And so if you do that, give it a second, it's going to show any areas where your client is going to need to sign. So in this case, because I added that one little text box, only Sky would be able to fill that in here. Same with the signature portion. Only she will be able and required to sign there. Same with the date. The date will also update based on what time they sign the document as well. So that takes care of a lot of that work for you. And you can also view it again, desktop, tablet, or mobile. Because again, your clients, chances are they might be signing this stuff on the fly. So they might get it in an email. And in that case, it will show you and it will format accordingly to have them sign and fill out whatever they need. Okay. So last but not least, let's go ahead. Let's send this bad boy off and take a look at and see what that final step is going to look like. Okay. So all I did was click send. And when doing that, it takes you right back into your envelope. You'll see that envelope now says whether or not it needs a signature or whether it's waiting on something. So let me go ahead and click into here. And that just gives you a bit more information. So if you're waiting or if it's been sent off or they still need to provide a signature, it will let you know here as well. So what I want to do, this is where I'm going to go rogue here for a second, so bear with me. I'm going to click over into that email that I provided for Sky. I put in my other email address. And you'll see here, I did receive that email from DocuSign. It's going to look a little something like this for your client. So it's going to say something along the lines of, Sam Hansen sent you a document to review and sign. It's going to say what that document or those documents are. And basically, it's going to give them the option to review that document. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm clicking on that. Again, this is the view that your clients are going to see. So again, please read the signatures disclosure, agree, they're going to hit continue. And then now they can type. And in this case, they can sign. Very much like Loop, it's going to have them adopt a signature. They will do that, they will adopt, and they will sign. So obviously, I'm not going to hit finish because I don't want to submit it. I don't want to do anything. This is all just a test to show you guys what this will look like. But basically, all your client's going to do is click, any areas they need. They'll be able to scroll down and it will be highlighted with that color where they need to click. And in that case, all they're going to do is hit finish. And once they hit finish, it will then appear that they have signed it within your DocuSign account. And again, much like Loop, it's going to show that they signed it. You'll get notified that your client has signed it. If there's anything else that they need to sign, or if they need to re-sign something, you're going to go through a similar process like we did today. I don't want to go down that road now because I know we're getting close to noon and to the end of this class. But essentially, these last two classes that I walked through is the bulk of what you're going to do. So you're going to see now, as we get into October, I will go into more of this in detail. I will do different examples. I will show different, little areas and little tricks. But this is the very basics of how to basically create a contact, fill in the information, and send it for signature. Okay, so that's going to be the bulk of what you're going to need to know, over the next few weeks. Okay. Let me stop my screen. Let me stop there real quick. So I can see all of your faces. There we go. That's a little better. Does anyone have any questions? I know I covered a lot today. Don't be worried. Don't be concerned. I just wanted to kind of start there so you've all seen it. And then now we're going to get to the process of really kind of playing it, doing different examples, and just getting you really comfortable with it. Any questions at all? Again, I guess I'll take silence as a good thing. Hopefully you followed along. And again, for those of you who weren't on this class, who are watching the recap, the replay, I'm here to answer your questions. Shoot me an email, give me a phone call, shoot me a text, whatever the case may be. Most importantly, I just want to make sure everyone has access. And then now we're just going to get comfortable. It's just a matter of getting comfortable. But hopefully with today, you kind of saw that functionality that I've been promising is still very similar to Loop. So it's not like starting from scratch. We are kind of, starting from a good spot. So, so next step on our part, on my part, on Sally's part, we're just going to get the rest of those documents in. So that way you guys can start playing and practicing with some of the documents.
Sam?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where to begin with questions. It is extremely difficult. It is nothing like Loop. It is a lot more steps. So hopefully you guys are going to create a how-to cheat sheet for us, because I'm taking notes, trying to follow. I lost where you were. I stopped taking notes. I'm lost. Yeah. I'm lost.
I have guides that I provided on kwtownsquare.net that are all written out step by steps. Most of what I covered today. Mm-hmm. So if you get stuck or lost, I definitely recommend, print those out, download a copy, because that's another way to kind of reinforce what we're doing on the calls. So, when I do the next class, I definitely recommend, not just for you, Jenny, but for anybody, feel free to print those out, and that will kind of go step by step, because I'm also trying to use those as a guide, so that way,
Mhm.
if people are kind of filling out a contract late at night, they can't get a hold of anybody, they're nervous, they're concerned, you'll have that guide that will go step by step, and from there, it really is just following the steps to get you from point A to point B.
So that's on the kwtownsquare.net.
Yeah, yep. There's a DocuSign tab at the top, and then if you click on that, I have a couple different guides at the bottom.
Hopefully that'll help, but super confused today.
That's
It's
honestly no need to worry, because at this point, we're only 2 classes in. So from here, I've introduced the bulk of the new information. So from here now, it's just gonna be putting it into practice. And I'm here, like I said, I'm here for you, Jenny. I'm here for everybody else. We can schedule one-on-ones if need be.
I think
Yeah.
I'll like that.
Yeah, so no worries.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Then if anybody else has any other questions, like I said, feel free, shoot me an email, call, text, and we'll kind of set it up from there. If not, be on the lookout. Once we send our October calendar at the end of this week, you're going to see I'm going to have a bunch of different classes with different topics listed out moving forward, mix of in-person and via Zoom, whatever works best for everybody, and we'll go from there. Okay. Okay. All right. Have a good one then, everybody. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks, Em.
Yep.